This is He Knows Everything, bringing you that heat and fire. All right, let's talk about it. I know it's been a minute since I've gone live, but I figured let me just talk about it with the Tank situation. See, we understand in boxing, and this is why I don't like covering boxing, but boxing has a lot of what we call classic dolts and troglodytes. Let me say it again. They have a lot of what we call classic dolts and troglodytes. You know, the infamous Rudy Poo, the infamous Plum Brains, the infamous Jabronis. This is what boxing has at its truest and its most properest levels. Because we all know there's levels to this shit, and we know there's gears. And the levels and the gears are as simple as this. Okay, a lot of boxing fans are casuals. Anyone that understood boxing understands that Roach was going to be a formidable opponent for Gervonta Tank Davis. The same boxing fans, and I want you to understand this. Let me rewind this because I need to let this marinate in the corpus callosum and in the cerebellum. I gotta let it marinate in the medulla oblongata. I gotta let it marinate in that cerebellum. So hear me and hear me motherfucking well. These same boxing fans, right? Because we're rewinding, right? They acted like Lamont Roach wasn't shit. They acted like he was bullshit and fuck shit. You know, like Biggie said, party and bullshit. But you know me, I remixed to bullshit and fuck shit. Let me say it again. Let Biggie say it again. Biggie said party and bullshit. But no, me, I had to reiterate it into bullshit and fuck shit. Because it's bullshit and fuck shit for boxing casuals to not know who Lamont Roach is and then all of a sudden get behind him and say that Gervonta Tank Davis got exposed. But if you understood who Lamont Roach was, you understood what Lamont Roach was doing up until this point, you would understand that him and Gervonta Tank Davis have a rich history of going at it. The same way that this fight happened is the same way that they went at it when they were 16 years old. Let me say it again. The same way that this fight happened was the same way the last time that they fought, because Lamont Roach let the world know they were 16 years old. Gervonta Tank Davis barely got out of that fight. It was a toe-to-toe fight. They both were toe-to-toe. So when people sit here and say, oh, Gervonta Tank Davis got exposed. No, Devin Haney got exposed because Devin Haney got dropped by Ryan Garcia. He got flatlined by Ryan Garcia. That's an exposure. When Keyshawn Davis had the poor performance that he had in one of his most recent fights, that was an exposure. Gervonta Tank Davis didn't get exposed by a guy who was also undefeated, who gave him a hard outing. See, boxing fans got to know the difference between getting exposed and fighting an opponent that you can't just steamroll. Everybody's used to Gervonta Tank Davis being a meme in terms of knocking folks out, but Andre Ward said it best. You're not going to knock every opponent out. You're going to have to fight fights where it's going to be gruesome, where you're going to have to grind it out. So the irony in Terence Crawford, because that's what he is at his truest and his most properest levels, he's mad that Gervonta Tank Davis called him out and basically said, hold up. You were getting dropped by the opponents like Gamboa. You were getting dropped by Mean Machine. By the way, the Mean Machine fight, it's ironic, as you see the background, because he's the main person that I wanted to get at, is Terence Crawford had the nerve to say Tank basically took a knee. But didn't you take a knee in the Mean Machine fight? Didn't Mean Bajin Google Gagin Vaviki Boom Machine, who Bomac said you were going to knock out in 9 rounds, he dropped you. So do you count that as a knockdown? Matter of fact, you didn't take a knee. You completely hit the ring. Let me say it again. You didn't take a knee. You completely hit the ring. Do you count that as a knockdown? So the irony in you talking about something like this when that happened to you, and then to bring Floyd Mayweather into the mix, let's just be honest, man. And see, a lot of Negroes, they don't want to admit this, but there's this inner civil war between light skin and dark skin. And that's really what it is at its truest and its most properest levels with Terence Crawford and Gervonta Tank Davis. It's a issue of light skin and dark skin. But it's even more prevalent issue in the fact that Terence Crawford always wanted the bravado that Gervonta Tank Davis has. Because Gervonta Tank Davis gets the hood respect that Terence Crawford always wanted. Let me say it again. Gervonta Tank Davis gets the hood respect that Terence Crawford always wanted, but he never could get. So because he could never get it, he has to showcase his hatred and his trollism. See, anytime you take the nerve and the audacity to sit down on a podcast to talk about somebody, all because they're telling the truth about you, and they're telling it to you in the most visceral form of cold-hearted, unadulterated, and cutthroat truth-telling fashion, you get the unmitigated gall and the audacity and the nerve to feel hurt. So since your feelings are hurt, you want to portray your haterisms and your trollisms. Because that's what Terence Crawford's doing. And then when guys like Ryan Garcia coming out saying you got exposed, didn't Tank knock you down? Stop the presses and pump the brakes on the nonsense. Teofimo Lopez, stop the presses and pump the brakes on the nonsense. Let's see. Who else is talking about this shit? Jamel Herring, stop the presses and pump the brakes on the nonsense. All people that got exposed. And then Shakur Stevenson, didn't you look bad in your last few performances? Again, stop the presses and pump the brakes on the nonsense. And all of y'all go sit down somewhere and what? Higgity fucking hush. Because when it's all said and done, didn't all of y'all look stupid in y'all most recent performances? And most of these guys are guys that Gervonta Tank Davis exposed. The irony in it. See, guys wanted to see Gervonta Tank Davis in a precarious situation where Gervonta Tank Davis got exposed. Even some of the people that I've been talking to most recently, since I haven't been doing these types of videos on YouTube, I could tell they've been wanting a moment like this from Gervonta Tank Davis, where Gervonta Tank Davis get exposed. But did he really get exposed, or did he fight a hard-nosed opponent? Let me say it again. Did he get exposed? Or if you was using the true boxing eye test, did he fight a hard-nosed opponent? Bottom line is, Lamont Roach is a hard outing for any motherfucker. If he was fighting Shakur Stevenson, let me be honest with you, Shakur Stevenson would have looked a lot worse. If he fought Keyshawn Davis would have looked even a lot worse than both of those guys. If he fought Ryan Garcia would have looked a lot worse. But because it was Tank got out of that fight with the skin of his chin, just like he did when he was 16 years old. So now Gervonta Tank Davis gets what? The first run it back of his boxing career. Now we get to know what Gervonta Tank Davis's fortitude is all about, what his mental makeup is all about. Because when Andre Ward had to run it back, he crushed the crusher. When Floyd Mayweather ran it back, he silenced Marcos Maidana. He silenced anybody. He silenced Castillo. So now, I believe that now Gervonta Tank Davis went 12 rounds with Lamont Roach, got the rhythm down, been in there under the bright lights. He's going to be more comfortable. And then the caveat, Calvin Hunter was not the main head trainer training him. I don't know why he made that decision, but clearly Gervonta Tank Davis made that decision for a reason. Now he has to go back, because my motto is this: if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. It's just like Earl the True Spence. If it ain't broke with Derrick James, figure that shit out. Because if you've been using a certain person that's your trainer that's been getting you to where you're at, why are you changing up the system? Why are you changing up the dynamics? You don't need to change shit. All you need to do is stay with who you're staying with that has led you up until this point. So yes, Gervonta Tank Davis is at a crossroads of finally having to deal with a running back. And he's going to deal with it. But the nerve of these boxing fans, the unmitigated gall of these boxing fans, and the disturbance of these boxing fans to turn around and to make it seem like Gervonta Tank Davis lost, now that's a fucking stretch. Because when you beat someone, right, In order to beat the champion, you have to definitively do more to beat the champion. Now we have to ask ourselves. Now everybody got off the whole, oh, here's the reaction videos. This is why reaction videos are nonsensical, especially when you're dealing with Rudy Poo and Plum brains. Classic dope and troglodytes. Ultra fanboys with the ultra fanboy rhetorics. When you're dealing with individuals that are motherfucking jabronis. They turn around and they kumbaya. But like Kendrick Lamar said in Luther, niggas want to kumbaya. Over here we say nah. Let Kendrick Lamar say it again. So hear him and hear him motherfucking well. K-Dot said it best. Niggas want to kumbaya. Nah. Over here we don't kumbaya. Over here we tell y'all what the truth is. And the truth in its most visceral form is as simple as this. Gervonta Tank Davis just needs to run it back. But Lamont Roach didn't do more than enough to secure the win. He did enough to run it back. So if y'all gonna keep that same energy like y'all did with Madrimov and said, well, Madrimov didn't do enough. And see, this is the problem I have with boxing fans. You gonna sit there and say Madrimov didn't do enough to beat Terence Crawford. Then keep that same energy, dog, with Terence Crawford, with Gervonta Tank Davis, and say that Lamont Roach gave him a hard fight, but he didn't do enough to win. You see, everybody was waiting for a moment like this. But see, what people got to understand, and this is how boxing fans show you that they're casuals, right? They want to sit here and not realize that you're not going to knock everybody out. You're not going to have a mean performance every night. There's going to be those fights under the bright light where you're like, man, how did I get out of this situation? And now Gervonta Tank Davis has that in Lamont Roach. So what we've learned through this whole debacle is how many haters Gervonta Tank Davis really has, how many trolls Gervonta Tank Davis really has. But what we also learned is how casual the boxing community is. Because if they truly was using the true boxing eye test, if they really truly did their homework on Lamont Roach, they would know this fight was going to turn out the way that it turned out. How come me that's not covering this shit every day motherfucking knew that? But the guys that cover this shit all the time, because you know they're devos, they get on their manginas, they get on their femboys, they get on their beta male congregation, and then they go from channel to channel like opera singers, you know, singing them motherfucking songs, and being motherfucking la cucarachas. And what have we said about la cucarachas? No, yo no puedo caminar, because us all cockroaches do, they scatter like motherfuckers. They want to sit there and tell you things because of hatred. See, you got to pay attention when people are talking. You got to see where they're coming from. And where they're coming from is a place of hatred. Where they're coming from is a place of trollism, like Terence Crawford when he was talking about Gervonta Tank Davis. He didn't like that Gervonta Tank Davis exposed him. How come you was getting dropped earlier on in your career when you was younger? How come you wasn't as sturdy, but all of a sudden you got with Victor Conte? I mean, you have to be living under the rock if you don't know nothing about Balco. You have to be living under the rock if you don't know nothing about biogenesis. You have to be living under the rock if you didn't know that Victor Conte was indicted for basically giving athletes, Olympic level drug testing athletes, doping mechanisms for them to have performance enhancement abilities. Damn near spiked the Ryan Garcia situation because Devin Haney obviously was one of his guys. But see, they don't keep that same energy. And I think this is what has deflated me from even talking about boxing. This is why I don't even talk about it as much, because people are not authentic. People are not real about it, and people don't keep that same energy. Because if you're going to keep the same energy, keep that same energy with Terence Crawford, like you did with Madrimov. If you said Terence Crawford barely won that, okay. If you said Devin Haney barely beat Lomachenko, then basically say the same thing about Terence Crawford, say the same thing about Gervonta Tank Davis with Lamont Roach, and saying Gervonta Tank Davis barely beat Lamont Roach. But to say he got exposed, that's a fucking stretch. To say that he lost, that's a super stretch. And to say that he basically is no longer Tank and we don't know what's going on with him, that's a extreme fucking stretch. Tank was supposed to fight Loma. Loma pulled out. So now he had to repivot his career and pick up an opponent that that wasn't even on his radar. Lamont Roach was not on his radar. His radar was supposed to be to fight Vasily Lomachenko, but that didn't pan out. So now he had to repivot. So Tank turns around and gives you boxing fans, you ungrateful fucks, a fight, and y'all turn around and shit on him. Hits are things that make you say, Hits are things that make you say, But in its most cold-hearted, unadulterated, and cutthroat truth-telling fashion, I'm disgusted. And I've continuously been disgusted with the boxing community because they are disingenuous. They are casuals. And they basically jump and run to whatever situation they think benefits them at that point and that time. But in actuality, they're not being real with you. Because if they're being real with you and they're telling you it the way that they're supposed to tell you, then they would be telling you as simple as this. Gervonta Tank Davis had a hard test. Gervonta Tank Davis fought a credible boxing opponent, if you're not a boxing casual, but we need to see a run it back. Lamont Roach earned a run it back. That's the cold-hearted. That's the unadulterated. That's the cutthroat truth-telling fashion. I keeps the foot on the whoop on the Niggs. I keeps the foot on the whoop on the Niggs. This is He Knows Everything. Check it out.